to call to order our meeting today for the Allegheny County Board of Education, Tuesday, September 9th at 5:04 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, Mr. Llewellyn will read closed session summaries for executive sessions held August 12th, 2025.
The Allegheny County Board of Education met in closed session on August 12th, 2025 at 1 p.m. here at Central Office. The purpose of the closed session was to engage in administrative function, discuss personnel matters, and consult with legal counsel. All 5 board members were present, and the vote to go into closed session was unanimous. The topics discussed were appointment of administrative positions, school resource officers, state board appeal, and employee arbitration.
Thank you, Mr. Llewellyn. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve. Motion to approve consent agenda.
Motion by Dr. Bond. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lepley. Any questions around the consent agenda? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move into our superintendent's report, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Martorano.
Thank you, and good afternoon, board members. It's great to see everyone, and to members of our audience, thanks for being here this evening as well. I'm Dr. Martorano, the superintendent of schools, and I'm happy tonight to actually illuminate our partnership with ACEA and our wonderful president, who is going to really take care of some good information for us. As many of you know, our community was affected greatly on May 13th with a flood that hit the Westernport area pretty severely, very severely to say for that moment. And the recovery has just been amazing to see how our communities come together, but also the acknowledgement of the lives that were affected and impacted from our teachers and our staff who provided support to our young people, the trauma that was experienced for our entire community, and how we've rallied together to support the school. So I appreciate your leadership, and I know we have a number of people that you're going to recognize tonight. So without further ado, let me turn it over to you. Thank you for being with us.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Martorano, and thank you, Board, for allowing me to speak. We're here today to celebrate. As Dr. Martorano already alluded to, it's not because it's a beautiful day today, but because of one that wasn't so beautiful on May 13th. That day, your ACPS staff, many of who are ACEA members, were true heroes. What they did, they proved they were dedicated, courageous, and resilient. These dedicated employees went above and beyond their duties for their students and communities, guiding their students all to safety and keeping watch into the night until it was no longer needed. They were courageous in the face of danger, as many of them watched the rising water consume their own personal vehicles in the parking lot, knowing that their homes may also be affected. And now that we have started the new school year in that same building of Westernport, they've proven they're resilient and committed to the students and community as they adapt to smaller spaces for the greater good. For these reasons, they deserve more thanks than we can possibly give them. So we decided, what's the highest thanks we could get? And on their behalf, we reached out to the Office of Governor Moore, and he happily granted a governor's citation to honor the employees and staff and members of ACEA. And I would like to have those representatives of the buildings of Westernport, Westmar, Georges Creek, Mountain Ridge to come in, as well as the principals who have joined us. And the citation reads, "Be it known, because of your demonstration of high integrity and ability, meriting our great trust and respect, we are most pleased to award you the governor's citation in appreciation of your outstanding services to the citizen of this state." Signed the 20th of August, Governor Wes Moore, Lieutenant Governor Aruna Miller, and Secretary of State Lee. Thank you all so much. We're going to grab a picture of you out in the hall, if you would, for the record. But we thank you so much, and we'll let you take that out with you.
Well, no. Yeah, well, hang on. Union presidents directing the superintendent is at the same time here. We're going to see the authority here come into play. I know board members have a couple comments that they would like to make, I'm sure. But I would also like to recognize all the leadership that is here. Those are moments that we cannot predict, and how we respond in those times of crisis is the resiliency of the community which you represent. If you would just quickly come to the microphone. I know, Derek, you're going to love this because you love that kind of attention. We haven't had a lot recently. I'd like for you just to say, introduce yourself to the board and say a couple words if you would. I'm going to ask everyone else to follow quickly if you would.
Derek Horn, Westernport Elementary Principal, and the community has been amazing. The outreach from all has been overwhelming to our staff. We have had so many people come and give us things, ask what we need, and the support that the board and Dr. Martirana has been great, and we are going to make it through this year. We are doing well. We are cramped, but we are doing well. So we appreciate everything you've done. Thank you.
I met with the United Way director today for another meeting, and she said that she had an interaction with you, and she wanted to know if you ever stopped moving, and I said you're always on the go on behalf of our kids. So thank you for your leadership. Give them a round of applause if you would. If you would come on up.
Beth Chapman. I also work at Westernport Elementary School. I'm the ACA rep. I teach second grade. To say that May 13th was a good day.
I know.
We've all had our moments, but not one student or staff member was lost that
Right.
day, and that's what's most important.
Yeah. Thank you. Next.
Good evening. I'm Shannon Green. I'm the principal at Georges Creek Elementary, and I second what Mr. Horn said as far as thank you for all of the support. Thank you to all of our amazing staff members, and it's definitely created a core memory that our students and families are still talking about, and we've learned a lot from. So we're taking what we learned and moving forward, and hopefully never have to experience again.
Yeah.
But we've taken that resilience and we're moving forward. So thank you, and I'm going to introduce Missy from Georges Creek.
But I have to acknowledge your instructional focus with a core memory being discussed in that as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Melissa Keeley. I'm not a second grade teacher anymore.
Not anymore. I roped her into kindergarten.
She moved me down to kindergarten. I failed. But anyway, yes, May 13th was a memorable day. I think the most memorable part was deciding whether we were riding in dump trucks or a school bus up to Mountain Ridge. But we did get all the kids there safely, and most of them went home that evening. So
Yeah.
we only had a few left over, so that was very important.
Thank you.
I'm Laura Puffenberger, the principal of Westmar Middle School, and I have two of my staff members here with me. Just want to thank the board for your support that day. I know a lot of people reached out to us on a personal level and a professional level, ran into several of you in the community, and praised the staff for all of their hard work and dedication that day. And as they all said, I guess I could triple it. But we didn't lose any students that day. We didn't lose any staff. Everybody made it home safely. Some made it home at 10 o'clock the next morning, but they all made it home. And do want to also thank my assistant principal, Neil Camp, who spent the night that evening with a lot of our students, and Mr. Carter for his support in welcoming our staff and our students when we arrived.
Thank you for your leadership. Thank you so much for your words.
I'm Amy Duncan. I teach 7th grade math at Westmar, and I've taught on the crick for 25 years, and I think we always thought it was possible for this to happen, but for it to actually happen was honestly insane.
Exactly.
Especially with how quick thinking and how smoothly everything seemed to go. I mean, we had very few. The kids didn't know the chaos that was happening around us too much other than on their phones. So that was actually, it was a positive. We just kind of stayed and hung out and talked about things and played games, and then we got onto a bus and rode through and looked at all the water and the damage, and it was amazing. amazing in a good way, but also obviously a horrible way. When we talk this year about our different evacuations and stuff, I'd say, remember, we never planned exactly, but we have to talk about, and they looked at me like they didn't know what I was talking about. And I was like if it floods, and they were like, oh, and then it started a whole conversation. So it's interesting how resilient kids are.
Yeah. I want to comment on something you said. I don't know where President Sloan went, if she's still there back in the back. I see you there. We had the discussion about the resiliency of staff and how we need to support the individuals who are taking care of our students every day. And that is definitely noted for all of us in terms of the leadership that all of our staff provided from all the schools. So thank you for lifting that up as well. We appreciate that. Next.
I'm Jennifer Ritchie, and I teach at Westmore Middle School as well. I'm a sixth grade English language arts teacher, and I wasn't at school that day. I had a doctor's appointment, but it was amazing keeping in touch with all of my colleagues, checking to see, like, do you need me to go get your children off the bus? Do you need me to, run something somewhere? And then, just watching the way the community came together was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Great support system for one another.
And
So
again,
thank you for all of the help that you provide
Thank
our
you.
students and our staff.
Thank you, 100%. Go ahead, Mr. Carter.
Hi, Danny Carter, principal of Mountain Ridge. It was amazing how the community came together that night. The emergency services all worked together, the fire departments, the police departments, the board. It really was amazing to see how the community came together. It was a community effort, and the single goal was the safety of our children, and it was amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your leadership. And one more time, give them a round of applause, board members, if you would. Community, give them a round of applause. And President Sloan, I want to thank you for your leadership, because at the forefront of everything that you talk about is the support of our staff. And it was absolutely wonderful to see that outpouring, even in times of crisis and chaos in their own lives as well. Thank you so much. Board members, back to you, Chair.
I'll just quickly say thank you all. Dr. Bond had read a statement about those days events a few months ago, and that still rings true today. We all still feel that way. Thank you all for everything you did that day, and we made it through on the other side. We were being updated in real time as quick as what we could, so we can only imagine. Obviously, we weren't there, but we appreciate it.
All that I said in that lengthy speech a while ago still stands true. But 2 Fridays ago, we were up.
Yeah.
We come up and visited. And I was amazed at the work and dedication that the staff there put in, and the hard work that you guys did to make that place hospitable. Not only that, but accommodating and welcoming for our students. I'm sure the community is appreciative, but I just wish they knew how much heart, love, and empathy you had for the students up there. I'm sorry, Mr. Principal, I forgot your first name.
Okay, Mr. Horn.
But amazing. You guys are phenomenal, and we're so glad to have you as our teaching staff. This county is blessed to have you, so thank you.
I'll echo that. I mean, I don't think we can ever thank you enough for everything that the students and staff did that day and continue to do. Got to visit on campus at Frostburg while Westernport was there. I think people forget the very real human trauma here. I know it's tough for a lot of you to think back to that day. I can never imagine being in that situation, let alone not having to only worry about yourself and your property, but also these kids who I know you all care for so much and are such a big part of your days. So thank you from the bottom of my heart as a parent especially, and we just will forever be grateful.
I'll echo the same thing too. We were all very nervous, very upset, very worried about you guys and what was going on. And like Crystal said, we were updated in real time what was going on. Had the opportunity to tour the school, see the progress, unbelievable. But the best thing was the very first day of school. The kids were excited, the teachers were excited. I was excited, I know. Max was excited. It was just almost gave me goosebumps to see the kids come back to their school and the support that everybody has given you guys. Thank you very much for everything that you do for the kids in Allegany County.
And they've pretty much summed everything up, so I get to go last. And I think I can speak for all of us. We were all on the edge of our seats that day, and it was scary. And to see how smoothly everything seemed to go, and you guys did a stellar job, absolutely stellar. And I've heard nothing but good things and good stories from the community. And thank you guys. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have an MCAP testing update from Ms. Trina Simpson.
Good evening. Thank you for a few minutes to present the spring and all of 2024-25's MCAP assessments and overview summaries of that. I am, for the public, supervisor of assessments, the accountability, and communication. So I wanted to start out with some highlights. ACPS, we surpassed the state level in 15 of 21 tested areas. There are that many tested areas. We surpassed the state in 6 of 7 ELA areas, 6 of 9 math, 2 of the 3 science, and 1 of the 2 social studies. And also an update overview there that we surpassed the state graduation rate by 4%. And that is the highest our graduation rate has been since 2020. That is an impressive improvement in growth there. This is a graph I'm going to move through a lot of slides quickly because of time, but hopefully you can look over. This is a highlighted graph of the states, of the counties in the state of Maryland and their proficiency levels based on improvements. And you can see that we are in the second to the highest, color-coded. Next slide. This is a ranking of all of the counties in Maryland. It's hard to see. I do realize it's small, but pointing out we are above the state average when you combine all of our English tests together, not one specific test, but all of our English. We are at a 53% proficiency rate. The state is at a 50.8, so we are 2.2% over the state proficiency rate. And then the next slide takes you into looking at each grade level. The blue is Allegany County's proficiency rate, and the red is the state. You can see for English that we hold steady from grades 3 almost through grades 10, hovering just up and down a little bit on those 50%, which we really would like to see more growth, which we're working towards. But the only area for ELA that we were not over the state average was ELA 10, but I do have to point out the hard work done there, that even though we were not above the state average, we did increase ELA 10 by 3%. So that was an increase. The next graph shows grade 3, 4, and 5 over a 4-year trending of time. We look at this to see if we're moving in the right direction. A lot of times this is, we work with the supervisors with content, with our specialists. We dig in each grade level to make sure we're making improvements. We like to see this as stair steps moving up. Sometimes it goes up and down. That can be based on the group of students as they do change each year. Graphs that I've not provided here this evening because I can provide hours of graphs, but I do follow cohorts of students as well to see if the students were proficient the year before. Are they maintaining their proficiency? We work with the schools, the principals, and their teachers looking at that as well, and that's part of their school improvement plan. Moving on, same thing for trending data of grade 6, 7, 8, and 10. Sometimes these increments can seem small. They seem small, but they're huge celebrations. Moving that ticker it's tough.
I will say, as far as ELA, what we dig into and we look at all levels, we have increased a lot and was a bit above the state average significantly in our writing and reading expressions. I will make this a public point to say we encourage parents. We still say you are the number one, starting at a very young age. Read to your children, get them to school, even though we might make up work. There's nothing like being present for the instruction. Came across a very interesting stat the other day that 87% of the kids that are read a bedtime story is by their mother. But yet, kids that are read by their father have a boost of vocabulary that just, it soars. And so I would encourage both parents. The mother brings a side of empathy and soothing and calms them before bed. The fathers, they're usually doing these voices and creativity, and it was the most interesting article. So while we're on the English side, I thought I would put that out there. We also took notice and look at a lot of trends as far as a lot of the students that are scoring level 1 and 2, they are our students that are chronically absent. So I also put out a plug there for attendance at this point. Moving to the math, it's kind of running through the same thing for math. This is the state and where all of the counties are in their percent of proficiency. The next graph shows all of the ranking of counties. I'm not sure if I mentioned that. I think I said where we were. I don't know if I said we were 12th in the counties of 24 for ELA. We are 10th of the 24 for math. For our math proficiency, we are also 2.3% above the state in our proficiency for all math tests combined. This graph shows our math from grades 3 through geometry. You will notice it's very different than the English, where we kind of hold steady in all of those 50%. Math across the state, not just Allegany County, does decrease every year in proficiency. The state is looking at it. We are looking at it. They are in the midst, though, of revamping some of the math tests, which we feel it might be more of a test issue. But regardless, we deal with the stats that we have. And I will say one of the areas that we were not above the state average was Algebra 1, just slightly below, but we did have a 4% increase in proficiency over the year before. Looking at the math trending, grades 3, 4, and 5, you can see though the scores aren't what we want them to be, we are definitely moving in the right direction. And we do think really instilling those solid, if it's reading or those math skills, gathering the proficiency at an early age and keeping them is most important. So we really we emphasize, even though grade 3 is the first testing, grade 3 for MCAP, we don't wait till grade 3. Certainly pre-K, kindergarten, first and second. We are just preparing them to be successful there. The next shows proficiency of 6th, 7th, and 8th. We will say these are, even though many above the state average, just low. We are not satisfied with that. Middle school students seem to drop off. We know there's a transition. There's a struggle just in many different areas of their life transitioning to middle school, but the numbers do drop significantly at the middle school level. The next slide shows Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. This graph's a little all over the place, and that has to do with that the state keeps changing who is required to test at what time. Rather, it's in Algebra 1 if you don't pass Algebra 1. So some of this is due to that, but you can see we have moved in positive directions in all 3 of those high school tested math areas. The next graph shows science at grades 5, 8, and high school. They are the only 3 grade levels that are tested for science. and above at the 5 and 8, and below at the high school level. I will add also that the high school science and government test, I will remind that it did last year become 20% of the students' overall transcripted grade. Moving to the next slide, this is the trend of the last 3 years from grades 5, 8, and the high school science. So you can see high school, even though we were below the state, we have made some gains and improvements there. The next slide showing social studies and comparing grade 8 and high school government. Once again, these are the only 2 tested areas of social studies and where we are compared to the state. Also showing the trend on the next slide of the last 3 years. The last slide that I have prepared for this evening is the graduation rate from 2020 to 2024. 2020, where's 2025? And I think I pulled this as reported on the last report card, which is lagged just a tad. Yes, yes. And so we're very pleased with our graduation rate. A lot of things that we're doing at the high school and looking are part of Blueprint, which is our 9th graders on track. I am pleased to say that we have increased our 9th graders on track, that we only had 8.5% of our 9th graders not on track after the 9th grade. It was a super stat, and that number is, do the students have 5 or more credits at the end of their 9th grade, including credit recovery for the summer. We also at the high school are looking at their CCR, that is their college and career readiness, and their optional pathways when they actually meet that. We look at the end of 10th grade if students are college and career ready, and as a strong indicator at their success in which pathways we're taking them there. From this, we use all of this and we dig not at a county level, but then into the school level with all principals. They all have school improvement teams. We look at their strengths. We love to make they work so hard. Sometimes it's easy to just bring to the table, here's what we need to improve on. Here's what we need to improve on. And my first few years here, I was so about just the improvement. I missed the fact of celebrating what they had achieved and how hard they had worked. So we first do that, but then we definitely dig into the areas that do need improvement or that are lacking. I can tell you that we are currently looking at subgroups of students with special needs. We have a large gap between our students that are economically disadvantaged and not. And we actually have a very large gap in English between our male and female. So we're looking at a gender gap. By the time they were at ELA 10, there was a 21% difference of male and female in proficiency rates of English 10. So there's a lot of data to dig into, but I tried to pull the key points together to give you an overview. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you for the report. I do want to say a few more things before we open up to questions from the board members.
Definitely.
I would like board members to fully understand the vertical articulation. If you notice how she presented this information tonight, we talked about our leading indicators regarding the aspect of our performance in reading at the elementary levels. And right now in all of our schools, our elementary schools, we're using our universal screener to assess where our students are so that we can provide early interventions to ensure that they're reading by grade 3. So we want to make certain we're understanding that. And the way that this presentation was also set up is that we want to see what our end result and our goals are when we talk about the graduation rate. So the graduation rate is just not devoted to what happens in one senior year. It's a vertically articulated process that is established in kindergarten as well. If students are on grade level for their reading, it's predictive evidence for further levels of success with college and career readiness. The other piece that I want to add in is setting up structures within our schools to allow our teachers to use the data to make instructional decisions. So when you hear us talk about collaborative planning, That is an absolute focus regarding using our data, making decisions in real time to improve instruction for our students so that they are on track through this vertically articulated process. I just want to shape and frame that a little more for the board to see the overall of that. Thank you for your presentation.
Any questions from board members for Ms. Simpson?
Just wanted to touch on a few things. First, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Blueprint and other statewide initiatives impact this. College and career readiness, an example, maybe as a driver for our students to be more engaged in the classroom because they're seeing that direct connection. But I also want to give kudos to you and reiterate two things that are really important. The first is attendance that you mentioned, of course. You know, parents in our community really need to understand that missing as little as one instructional day per month can have such a devastating impact on our students. And another important point is this part about reading. And a lot of people in the practice understand that reading is such a critical skill in terms of building comprehension, critical thinking, reasoning skills, etc. There's so many studies that show this strong link between reading and improvement in math, science, and other skills. And I know as a parent, and I find myself doing this too, how can we improve our kids' math, science, or social studies if that's not our area of expertise? And reading really is the key. And to tie this together, there's something else that Ms. Simpson mentioned. You know, we are an economically depressed area, and we have the vast majority of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch even without us providing that. And I remember the National Literacy Project, I think it is, and I don't want to misquote this, found that in 2023 nationally, of students that received free and reduced meals, more than 1 in 10 did not own a book at their home, did not have a book in their, possession, which is an insane thing to think about. But I want to reiterate that through programs like Imagination Library, which is nationally available, HRDC and others will help you get connected with that, our libraries in our school system and our libraries in our community, please use those resources. And if you want to see your kids, and I can speak from my own experience coming from a single parent household and breaking that cycle of generational poverty for myself, reading was the only thing that helped me there. It built confidence in my speaking skills. It made me the person I am today. Read with your kids every night. Please, please, please. It's the biggest driver. Teachers do so much every day to try to help your students, and there's nothing like that individualized one-on-one care and reading support that you can give your kids. Anyway, sorry, not to get on grandstand about it.
Thank you for those additions.
First, in general, it looks like we're really making some progress, but I had a couple years ago, I had concern about our math. Do we still, and excuse me for not knowing this, do we still teach what was commonly known as the new math? That's what parents.
Well,
that new
so it wasn't really new math, but
But the way it's presented.
it was. Yes.
So we still
it was.
do that?
We do. It's just called the Common Core Standards, and it was more, instead of just coming up with an answer, does the student have an in-depth knowledge of how they got there? Because the new math, what that leads to is if they forget the steps, then they can't get the answer. But if they understand the steps, they can get there.
And I've talked to a couple math teachers, not only in our county, but in other counties. And one is a very good friend, and she's a supervisor in a different county. Mm-hmm. Her comment, and we had math together through high school and college, and she helped me. but anyway, and I'm glad for that. But what she said, and makes a lot of sense when I'm looking at these numbers, is her comment was that type of learning helps struggling students by looking at those different approaches 100%. And being able to see different ways.
It absolutely
But her comment was, and she did teach advanced math, and she said, but the problem is that it hinders our students when they move into more advanced subjects. And when I look at Algebra 1 to Geometry to Algebra 2, well, Algebra 1, we went from a 36% in our general math stuff, drops to a 21% in the last year. And then by the time that those students get to Algebra 2, the ones that are there are going to be people that really had a pretty good grasp of math anyway. So we're going to obviously see an increase in those numbers because there are people that love math, because if you don't, you're not taking Algebra 2. So it seems like maybe, not countywide, I know a lot of that is dictated by the state level, but it seems to me that instructing all our students with that type of learning may be hurting our more advanced, or potential for more advanced students to grasp the core concepts needed and master to do well in advanced math.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but to give just a little background of that, like we know, like our math counts team, and I had a son that was on one, and they just memorized. But I would be like, so getting, for instance, a very simple volume of a cylinder, they could just spout out that formula, plug in the numbers. But they didn't realize that a volume was pi r squared h, and pi r squared is a circle, and you just stack a whole bunch of circles on top of each other, which is a circle times height. And that's the understanding, instead of just pi r squared h and getting an answer and not understanding where it comes from. So what we have been working on, though, that I'll say from elementary, and it does get more difficult at the high school level, there's a technique called CRA, where we take concrete, that is, you physically have your little blocks, your fraction bars and stuff like that. And they can do that very well at an elementary at different skill levels. And then the abstract is just old school way. Just learn it, cross it out, do this, do that, And the R in between, the representation, when you take those blocks away from a student, how do you get there? And so we literally are teaching them like to draw it, to create that understanding of what is happening with the blocks, computing it over to an abstract way of thinking. And that is more difficult as you get into higher level math, but it isn't as needed and one thing we're working on, it seems like a lot of the teachers we've worked on that they do concrete very well, and then all of a sudden they say they're at the abstract, and there's not that bridge of understanding of that representation. The bridge is what will take us that those upper level students are actually achieving anyway. So that's
Edison
a little.
Edison had a good comment to a PhD student in his lab with the volume. It was a gourd, and he said, wanted him out of his way, and he said, calculate the volume of this gourd for me. And 20 minutes later, he said, well, what's the volume? And they said, well, I'm still working on it. And he grabbed the gourd and he filled it with water and dumped it in a beaker and said, that's the volume. So I'm glad to hear that there is a reason, but
yes.
It does concern me.
Well, especially we have a lot of grandparents that, bless their hearts, are raising grandchildren. Let's, just be honest, they have their children, and the only way they know to help them with the homework is the way they learned it. And that's not what the lessons are showing. So I can see also the frustration sometimes coming from that side if that isn't how they learned something.
One other question, and this is me being new to all of this, as a newer board member. This is MCAP data specifically. Is iReady assessment data in here too? Is that part of this data? Or
that is not part of this data because this is the state reported.
Yep.
iReady we take as using part of Blueprint though, and we pair that together instead of just one data point. We do and measure iReady along with when we make decisions, when students, with what a student's need is.
Yep.
This is one test.
Yeah,
It's just one picture of that student. We certainly don't make the decisions based on just one thing. So that's a very good question.
And I'll say one thing just based on some feedback I got the other week regarding iReady and testing and assessments in general and math trauma, I guess you could say testing trauma, which is a problem that people deal with. And I know it can be intimidating for parents. This is really for public comment, but it's one of those things where, I've witnessed firsthand through both being in the system and also just working with our educators that, these tests can be stressful for students. And I think that we do a great job instructionally with our education leadership. And I think to Martirano's point, collaborative planning is going to support this even further of really making sure that students realize that this is not an assessment of their skills or readiness for success for anything. This is a point in time marker that we use to inform how our programs are performing and where those gaps are as best as possible. So again, I know it's a tough reality of this, but I think we have really good teams of teachers who help support students through this. And if you feel like there is some friction or something like that, schedule a parent-teacher conference, talk to them, let teachers know what your kid's dealing with and the struggles that they feel, just to put a more human element to this, because I know we look at
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Schools are actually receiving this week the students' individual score reports. They're called ISRs. And when they're sent home, they're broken down into so many levels showing the strengths and the weakness. So, for instance, English might have 5 different areas, and the student may do well in 2 of them and mediocre in 1 and then weak in 2 others. So the parent can actually see, and we use that in the system. Teachers use that. They look at those reports with the students when they're making their small groups in their classrooms. There is a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes as far as at the school level, the individual data, and even how lessons are prepared for the students.
There's so much to say here. I'm gonna
There's
try
so
to
much.
minimize it. There's just so much. But what I would want board members to always understand that the distinction between formative and summative assessments. The summative assessments are the big ones that we're reporting out today that represent that one snapshot. What I become more interested in are the formative assessments that are occurring in the classroom that are aligned to the curriculum. And to answer your question, that we are a standards-based state, that by the end of each grade level, there are certain expectations. So when we ask parents as partners, we want to ensure that our parents understand what is being taught at each grade level. So at the end of first grade, there is an expectation on numeracy. There's an expectation in terms of number sense and not rote memorization. And then what that leads to, as a former science and math teacher, that leads to then a different developmental process in the brain when you go into algebra and the readiness for that to be able to see the abstract, the representation of a letter that represents a number in solving a problem. So you have to have those foundational skills that are in that standards-based curriculum that are aligned to our delivery model. So I just wanted to shape a little bit more volume on that with it. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Trina.
Are there any other questions for Ms. Simpson? Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we're going to move into the public comment portion of our meeting. As a reminder, during the public comment portion, topics excluded from conversation are individual personal issues, comments identifying individual students or staff members, matters that are on appeal or may be appealed, topics for which the board schedules formal public hearings, and advertising or solicitation for products and services. And we do ask that comments are limited to 5 minutes per individual. And first we have signed up to speak is D.A. Tenen.
This one I think my voice projects loud enough where so everyone should be able to hear me. I just wanted to give my thoughts. Public schools, I can remember the days I walked through the halls. I can give a high five to my teacher, see my coach and say, hey, what's up, coach? Can I talk to you for a minute? Never did I thought or did I think that the coach would ever say, talk to your counselor. Can't talk to you right now. Walk down to the counselor's office. See my teammates, my peers, my family. And I say, hey, how you doing? I don't get the same feedback as I got last year. Good morning, counselor. Can I speak to you about an issue that's heavily on my mind? Well, if it's concerning a certain issue, you can. Public school system, where do I go from here? Thankfully, Allegany County, we got a new superintendent, so things could be made right. Welcome, sir. My name is D.A. Tenen. I hope that the school board hears what I'm saying without me saying it. Do the right thing. Kids come first. When there's a child involved, sometimes you gotta make it right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tenen. Next, we have Jeremiah Babo. No? Okay. Serge Babo.
Good evening to all of you. I know we're not supposed to talk about personal matter, or I think you say anything in the appeal. As you guys know, I'm going through the same situation I went through last year, and I'm just at the point where I just want some answer. It's affecting my son, even though he's not showing me. This is his senior year. Let me go back a little bit. I'm thankful that he's in school. He's getting his education, and that's what comes number one. For that is no question. But his exclusion from extracurricular activity is really bother him, because that was one of his way out to the next level. And by not participating in that now, it diminishes his chance to be able to obtain a scholarship tomorrow, God willing. So I just need this matter to be resolved as soon as possible so my son can get back to be a kid. All I'm asking is for my son to be a whole. That's all I'm asked, to be a whole. Nothing more, nothing less. He's on pace to graduate. I'm thankful for that. Tomorrow he might obtain a scholarship to go somewhere. Great. If he don't, great. But at least I know he got his education. But I do not want him not to be able to obtain a scholarship because he was not given the opportunity. I want him to have the opportunity, and maybe it doesn't happen. Nothing is guaranteed. So please make my son a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Babel.
Thank you, ma'am.
I'm sorry, the next name, I believe it might say Jerry, but I'm not sure. Is there Jerry? No? Okay. Larry Banks? No? And Simeon Younger? Yes. Is anyone else speaking that signed up? No? Okay. Is there anyone that we missed that would like to speak? Okay. Are there any board member responses? Okay, thank you. At this time, we have an update from our student member of the board.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. Sometimes it's hard for me to explain that to them. I always get that mixed up. But student member of the Board of Education, I'm so blessed to be here, and it's such an honor. Thank you for allowing me to have this chance to speak. To get rid of old business, because I've made some notes. Old business. I remember last month I called MABE, which is American Association Board of Education. I called it Maybe. It's MABE. I went there to Annapolis last month, and they're like, "Welcome to MABE," and I was like, "No way." So so I was like, "There's no way I did that." So MABE, the MABE orientation was amazing. I met majority of the student board members of the county in one place, which was so helpful. Some have been in their position for 2 years, some had been in their position for 1, but we all got to meet at that place and get trained for 8 hours by MABE, and we got certifications for it. It was amazing. I appreciated that so much, to be able to talk to them and be near them, because MABE did say that we are like the only state that even gets to have all of our student board members in one place, and we're like one of the only states that every board requires a student, and I love that, and I'm like, wow, what are the odds I'm in this state? Wonderful. For ACPS, which is our county student council, we're having our preparation for our first General Assembly on October 23rd, which will be at Mountain Ridge. Very excited, working very hard for that. We're working on a fall theme, maybe not like Halloween, but very like fallish, to just get them engaged and get them excited to be there, since I find that also a blessing and an honor to have all of our councils meet in one place. So we're getting ready for that, Mountain Ridge. At the Career Center, it has been a big thing. October 24th, via the American Red Cross, there's going to be a blood drive by the Academy of Health Professions in that program at the Career Center, which I am also a part of. If we meet the challenge criteria, scholarships will be offered to us, which is a huge honor. Our nursing instructor this year, Miss Sarah Taylor, she's been working very hard, and it's a big thing there every year, the blood drive. Everyone does it, except for me, because I never meet it. I never done. I can't do it. Again, I wrote understanding my position. I'm not here to give my opinions or make any biases, that we are a team, and I appreciate that from all of you. That I don't have to be scared of you guys, that I can talk to you like scary adults. I can be like, you guys, I need to I can laugh, and I can laugh without making it nervous. I can talk to you guys. And most importantly, I am the voice for every student in the county, which when I started doing this, I was like, whoa, I did not expect all of that. But again, very honored. With that being said, since the school year has just started, one of the biggest concerns we've had is resetting our sleep schedules from summer to school. But the second biggest concern has been this brand new, more strongly restricted phone policy. Now, I had gotten a lot of information and research, but I didn't want to say it until I had gotten exactly what this is from, like, is it state enforced or county enforced? A lot of people were asking me. I said, let me talk to them. But what I do have hot and ready are their concerns and their voices for you guys. But before, may I ask what this newly restricted policy is? It's county. Okay.
This cell phone policy?
Yeah, who wants to take that?
I'm glad to go ahead if you.
I will jump in and say a few things on background, and we discussed this at a recent board meeting before you were a student member. One of the biggest challenges that we face, of course, and most of the country faces, is distractions in the school. Beyond that, there's obviously been public concern about phones being used in school to record things that should not be happening, et cetera. So we have a policy committee that meets on a monthly basis to review these sorts of concerns and iteratively improve our policies and identify gaps. One of the gaps that was identified, and we've seen a lot of movement at the state level and other counties, is the establishment of cell phone policies that are, to your point, more restrictive than they have been in the past. So we go through a policy process where we have principals, retired staff, former board members, our board members, Mr. Llewellyn, our attorney, sit down and walk through and review these other countywide or state level policies and guidance and try to develop a policy that works for our students and teachers, with the goal of eliminating distractions in the classroom and creating a learning environment that works for all students. So to your point, it is a countywide policy modeled off and informed by state guidance as well as what other counties are doing. And if anybody else wants to jump in or provide any other
I
context.
think that was a great description. Now, he gave you some background. Are you asking what it is based on the levels?
Yeah, just
So elementary cannot have their phone at all. There's not going to be a phone if it's with them on the bus, then turned off, completely put away through the school day. Middle school is before school, before the first bell, and at the very end of the day. High school can have it on their body, on their person, but they cannot have it out other than before class starts in the morning, lunchtime, and at the end of the day is the guidelines it's listed. It goes elementary, middle, and high school.
Wonderful. Thank you.
And part of this is the policy committee did not just pull this out of the air.
Right.
A lot of this came from input from parents, teachers, other students who were distracted by maybe the person next to them on their phone. So it was a whole collaboration of everyone that wanted to see something happen. Right?
I don't. Great. Yes. Okay. Yes, that one you're talking. Yes. Then I have. Excuse me. Yes. Great.
Let me jump in just a little bit to shape and frame it a little more.
Of course.
From a personal perspective, hard to believe that I grew up in an era where we didn't have cell phones. I mean, that's shocking, right? That is shocking. A little bit of step above tin cans and a string, to communicate. But understanding that, we grew up, as a graduate of the Allegany County Public School System, that our communication levels were increased because of the socialization that occurred. And when you think about the number one need for employers is communication. And when young people are spending their time during quality academic time distracted by devices, they miss out on that socialization and the full absorption of the curriculum and what teachers are having to offer. This is a research-based policy. Trends across the nation have been taken into account, And we believe for the betterment, for the educational delivery, that students don't need to be distracted by the use of the device. And that is tracking very clearly in the policy that this board has adopted. But I wanted to provide more of a reality based of what that translates to. And we want you communicating with each other, talking to each other, a novel concept for some, right? But the value of that is extremely important. So I just wanted to add that to it.
And with all of that said, we don't want to intimidate you. We would love to hear feedback from students as well in your open forum. We want to hear that feedback. We're not, trying to shut you down or anything like that.
No, seriously, thank you. I just wanted you guys to know that I knew what I was sitting up here for. Like, my main reason is so that I can be the voice, if the student's voice was a person, and that I want you guys to know that I understand why I'm sitting here, and that I am very well aware of my position and very honored for it. So, exactly, I'm very glad that you all cleared that up. You all heard it here first. I told them, I was like, please just watch the meeting, please. Because they were asking me so many questions. And the high school level, because of the policy, the high school level is where it butts heads the most, because we are the most flexible with our phones, and then we had more restrictions with it. I had gotten a lot of comments and concerns from all of the high schools in the county, asking several, not just my personal peers, but others whom I never have spoken to, so that I can get everyone's opinion and let them know who I was and what I was going to bring to you all. And so far, I've had a lot of comments such as, if the phone policy was put in place for the students, it should be put in place for the teachers as well, saying that they did not like how they had to get their phones taken away, but then the teacher can sit in the office and then sit on their desk, not office, and play on their phone or just go on there. A second one I had received was, I feel everything was smoother without the newer restrictions, and a reason they want to be on their phones was a common concern for being on their phone the most during school was so that they can listen to music while they complete their schoolwork, and so that they can contact their parents or guardians throughout the day. Those two were the main reasons for wanting to be on their phone throughout the school day without any restrictions. Some have unfortunately reported to me that it only makes others want to sneak their phone, trying to sneak their way around it more, and it makes them want to be excused to the bathroom a lot more so that they can have their phone on them when they're in there. Those are the two biggest concerns that I've heard from other people. On the other hand, though, there is a bright side to all of this, that there's many high school students, from the freshmen and sophomores. Most of the complaints with this policy was coming from the juniors and seniors, but the freshmen and sophomores, which I find very ironic, really enjoyed it. Claimed that they were staying more focused in school, and they were completing their work a lot earlier instead of last minute due to the lack of cell phones. Lo and behold, which I was like, I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they intended in the first place. And I find it that the freshmen and sophomores found that they were not as affected because they came from places like Braddock and Washington, where the phones would stay in the locker all day. So it didn't affect them as much as the seniors, who are like, it's in the name seniors, we should have the seniority. But overall, the students had said that they preferred the traditional way of handling phones. The biggest thing was those who just failed to uphold the traditional way, which I heard that word a lot, traditional, those who failed to uphold it would just be held a lot more accountable, and that their consequences were heavier than just the entirety of everyone getting their phones more restricted. That was it.
Thank you so much for that feedback.
Thank you.
And I want to say, too, to one of your points, the concern about teachers using phones, we all, I think, share that same concern. We understand the model that teachers and the example that teachers are supposed to set in the classroom, and there are always ways, in the same ways that we would say to a parent that might be concerned about reaching their child, of contact the main office and we'll get you in touch with your child as need be if there was an emergency or some other issue. We also feel like there are other ways to contact teachers. We know sometimes personal things happen with teachers. They have kids and other things like that, but totally agree that when we discussed it, we were concerned about the same thing, just to respond to one of those points.
Do you have anything else?
I was gonna say, well, thank you for saying, because me, I'm in the middle with all of this, because listen, even before it was restrict, I still get my work done. I still get the A's, so I was just like, and I could still go on my phone after I complete my work at the end of the day. It doesn't matter to me anyway. I'm okay.
Great job, Ms. Israel. We are happy to have you. Good report. Okay, are there any board member updates this evening? No? Need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second. Motion by Dr. Bond, second by Mr. Green. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.